I was above the car, above the scene, and I was in this, it was almost like a mist, like a presence of a divine being. There was no real entity there, but it was like a divine being that was like cradling me. Then my panoramic life review began. It was like on a panoramic screen in front of me. I was shown three-dimensional and 360 degrees, basically. And it's hard to convey this because it was like every thought, every action of my entire life up to that point, good, bad, indifferent, to the minutest detail and the most expansive way out infinitum, like rippling out. Tell the world that love is all that matters.
My guest today is Chrystal Rae, who had a near death experience when the Jeep she was in was bumped off the road, plummeting 80 feet into a ravine. Her story is nothing short of amazing, but maybe even more amazing to me is the message that she is bringing back, that love is all that matters. So I'm super excited. Chrystal, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Laurie, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's great. Well, why don't we start?
I'll give you some context to put the near-death experience in. So I'd signed up to go to this trip, and we got there, and it was just very uncomfortable for them, uncomfortable for me, and for my cousin, who was a lead clarinetist for the Dallas Opera at the time. We were there for 2 or 3 days, and I said, I just want to go home. I don't think I was ready for this. And she's, yeah, me too. Let's go. And on the way back to the airport, we had this really horrendous car accident. And this is when my life took a really big shift because of this car accident and the subsequent circumstances that happened as a result of the car wreck. So we were heading up the mountain, which we should have been heading down the mountain, but somehow we were heading up the mountain. I think we took a wrong turn. And then we started sliding, and the car ended up sideways in the middle of this highway. And the people coming down the mountain, obviously on pure ice, could not stop. And I think it was estimated the impact on the car, and it was on my side of the door, was 50 miles an hour. And it spun our car around. We flew off this cliff. We fell 25 feet to the ground and then flipped 10 times, ended up at a total of 80 feet all the way down at the bottom of this mountain, slamming into this huge wall of ice in an upside down Jeep. It was a small Jeep with a plastic cover. I can talk about what happened after I found myself at the bottom of the mountain, but what's more important is what happened during. As soon as the car started spinning, time slowed down. I mean, really slowed down, like not just slow motion, but almost stopped. And I was as though I was just kind of viewing everything. And I remember thinking like I didn't know I was going to die today. Like I was kind of surprised. Like I had the sudden realization, oh, we're going to go off this cliff and I'm going to die. And I was surprised by that because there's some part of being human or mortal or something that you just think you're invincible and you're never going to die. And I was kind of shocked by it. And then I remember looking in the car, and the guy driving was like hysterical, and Carmen was in the back screaming. And I remember looking back, and I had never seen such fear or such horror like in anyone's face. She was so panicked. And I just remember feeling such great compassion. So everyone's freaking out, but like Chrystal, she's like completely calm. I'm like the Zen Buddha in the car. And not because I'm so Zen or Buddha, but because time had slowed down. And also because I had had that near death experience or several times when I was a kid. So I was never afraid of death. I was just like, so calm, like, oh, I didn't know I was going to die today. And then everything started happening. The car got hit. And that's when I was above the car, above the scene. And I was in this, it was almost like a mist, like a presence of a divine being. There was no real entity there, but it was like a divine being that was like cradling me, holding me, and comforting me. And I really wasn't afraid, but and it was again like all this is happening within seconds, but this is, if I could put it into context, it felt like there was a couple of weeks or a month conversation going on here with this divine being. And I was shown, first of all, that I had never really enjoyed my life. Like I was shown three very poignant things, which I never really have been able to figure out, but maybe somebody will have some input on your podcast about what happened. But the first thing I was shown is that I had never really, I'd never really smelled, or I think the first thing I was shown was actually, I'd never really seen a sunrise or the sunset, which of course I was 30 something years old, I had. But I was shown, I was like, as though it was like on a panoramic screen in front of me, I was shown what the metaphoric value of each day of our life, the day, the sun rising, the sun setting, and the absolute privilege of being alive and being able to experience the physical embodiment and the start and the end of a day of a life. And I was just shown I had never really appreciated the experience of life, like of being alive from dawn to dusk. And then the next thing I was shown is that I had never really smelled freshly cut grass, which I think is really an odd one, right? But it was like that, I guess it's that aroma, that earthy aroma of freshly cut grass, and just washed over me. And it was just like, I think it was showing me that I had never really embraced the senses, like the ability to feel, to smell, to hear, to taste, to touch. And then thirdly, I was shown, and probably most poignantly, that I had never really touched anyone, like physically embraced. And of course, I mean, I had children. I had had 2 children. Like I had actually touched people, obviously. It was, but I was shown like one of the gifts of being human is that we have this physical embodiment and that we can actually reach out and touch each other. I was shown these 3 very poignant things. And then my panoramic life review began. And it wasn't as intense as I've heard other people have, but I was shown 3-dimensional and 360 degrees, basically and it's hard to convey this because it was like every thought, every action of my entire life up to that point, good, bad, indifferent, to the minutest detail and the most expansive way out infinitum, like rippling out. When you try to comprehend what that means, if you're 30 something years old, every single second, good and bad, and the ripple effect, because what that means is I not only saw my actions, I saw how they affected others, and I saw how a kind word had helped someone or an unkind word had hurt someone. And not only them, I had seen the ripple of how it rippled out to their families, to their loved ones, to people in their environment, and how their day had gone and how the rest of their life had gone, and on and on and on. Is all this information downloaded in a second, like. And then I remember thinking, well, I didn't really have a lot of shame about my life. I knew I had done some bad things in my life. I had hurt people. But I had always, since I remember, I told you earlier that this will be important later, since I was a kid, I had always decided that I just wanted to be good. And so even though I failed quite a bit on that path of trying to be good, but the intention was always there. So I always let myself off the hook. I was like, so this panoramic view of my life, I was not happy with some of my behavior, of course, and I had let myself down quite a bit. I was also very proud of my behavior, and more than not. But the main thing that I was shown is that in my attempt to be good, like I wanted to be a good little girl, I wanted to be a good wife, a good friend, a good ex-wife, a good mother, whatever, there was no joy. Like, my life had become a heavy burden. My life, even the be a good mother, be a good friend, be a good this, that was just like, it was like drudgery. It was like, what's the point? Like, why am I here? I knew I had responsibilities with my children, and so that gave me some hope and reason to exist, but there was no joy in my soul. And I was shown that I had carried being good like a heavy backpack, and that it had stolen my joy of my life. And I was told this as a direct message, and I really want to share it, and I always like to share this. I was told directly, each soul, and that means you, is here for the bliss of their own existence. And I was like shocked. I was like, bliss? We're here for bliss? I thought I was here to be responsible, to do the right thing, to take care of my kids, to be good, blah, blah, blah. Joy and bliss is not part of that program. And then I was shown, this is why you exist. This is why everything exists. The entire universe exists. Love is joy and bliss expressed. That's what love is, and that's what God is. It's joy and bliss expressed. And we're not here to be miserable, but I was shown that I could come back and I could write a book and tell the world that love is all that matters. And that always makes me want to cry because that's what really excited me. And I was like, really? I can write a book? I thought I was the most beautiful thing that I could do was to write a book. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to write a book. And I remember him, this being, by the way, I say him, but it really was, it had no sex. It was just an androgynous being, right? This presence wasn't even a being, this presence that was embracing me and cradling me and supporting me on my journey and showing me these different pathways that I could choose, said, yes, you take this one, you go back, you tell the world. And by the way, it was like, tell the world, not just tell one person, not tell people, it's tell the world. And I'm like, the world. Okay, I'm going to tell the world that love is all that matters. And I was like, okay. And by the way, add in your book that sound and light is the future of medicine. So I was like, okay, sound and light is, and that was exciting. We're talking 30 years ago or something to that effect. It was 1997, February 23rd. So however many years that is, time is always a blur for me. But I was told that I was going to write this book and put in the book that sound and light is the future of medicine, which I had no idea what that meant at the time, but I was excited to put it in the book. And that was the path that brought me the most joy. And so that was the path that my soul chose. And I was really excited to come back. And with that, I found myself with, that's my babies. With that, I found myself back in my body at the bottom of this 80-foot cliff that we had come down. The car was upside down and I could see the headlights and the wheels spinning and I could smell gasoline. And I looked over at the guy who was driving and he was covered in blood, but he said he was fine. And then I was calling out to my cousin Carmen, who was in the back seat, who, by the way, I had seen her like hitting her head on this, like there's a little roll bar, and then hitting her head on this side, and then hitting her head on this side, and then hitting her. And again, we flipped 10 times before slamming into the wall of ice. So there was no response. And I just had this sudden, like, because I had just seen that I get to live, I get to see my children again, I get to write this book. I get another chance to not just be good, but to be joyful, to truly live. Like I don't think I ever truly had any joy in my life. And I was really excited about it. And I had this sudden fear that this car was gonna blow up. So I remember climbing out the window and climbing up this cliff to get help. And at the top of the cliff, there was a big line of cars. And so when I climbed over the cliff, like nobody even could imagine that I had just come up from this. They like, do you know what happened down there? And I'm like, yes, there's 2 more people. And they air flight and they had to bring my cousin Carmen up on a stretcher and they took us to the hospital and it was all a blur. Truthfully, I don't even remember how I got to the hospital, but apparently I was in an ambulance. I don't remember. But I do remember coming in the hospital and I remember my cousin being wheeled in. One of the things I was shown in this out of body experience I told you that was hovering over this car wreck was that there's multiple timelines for our life. Possibilities, potentialities, nothing is set. Everything has already happened and in completion in the eternal now. So the one thing that is that no one will be left alone, abandoned, forever lost. We will all make our way back to our source, the loving, omnipresent creator at the center of it all. And some of us will take deep dives into dark shadows and muddy places and horror and pain and suffering and torture and whatever it is that we choose to do or we get to experience, however it may be in our lives. But the end product will always be love and light. And when I think about love, I think about a line or a continuum, a circle, or I guess a line would be easier to think about it in this way. If there's a point in the middle that would be neutral, and there's a point on one side that would be pure light, and the other side would be darkness, but it circles back around, and it's all one thing. And by the way, when I was out of my body, I was shown that there is no empty space in the universe, and darkness is actually a shade of light or a hue of light, that there is actually no such thing as darkness. Darkness is a very dim light, but light all the same, it's energy. And so wherever we find ourselves on that continuum, we will all find our way back to the center. And it's our gift and our choice, free will choice, that we get to choose that path. And we do come in with some preset predispositions. Like I wasn't born with, let's say, incredible music ability or mathematical ability, which I would have loved, both of those things, but they were not part of my journey. Other people, they come in with those qualities, just born like that, writing Beethoven at 5 years old or something. Those are what I mean by predispositions or sort of soul gifts, or even on the opposite spectrum, where they would come in with some disabilities and things, limitations and families and things that would hold you back from doing certain things that you might want. You might be born into a culture that, holds women back, or you might be born into a culture of poverty or caste system, or you might be born a queen and have your duty and you have to live your duty. You have no freedom because you're the queen. So whatever the spectrum is.
I want to come back to something you said earlier when you
Okay.
talked about the bliss and you talked about us choosing that, and it may not be something that people can embrace because it seems like there might be negative situations. But I want to bring back something you said earlier, which is the white screen.
Okay.
The white screen, you can't be harmed as a soul. And knowing that, how that also adds to us choosing it because we know truly we're the white screen.
Right. Right. So that the ideal that we come in and we have these horrible situations and predispositions, the soul is happy to do that, but it also knows that it can't be harmed. That, like I mentioned earlier, there's this white screen, the screen of which our lives are projected onto, that is untouched, unscathed, but somehow the screen is better for the experience, if that makes sense. And not only the screen, but the entire universe is better because it's each person, and from a tiny beetle to an ant to a grain of sand, everything in the universe is essential. Without that grain of sand, this universe would not exist. Without that cockroach, this universe would not exist. Everything is divinely planned and necessary as a part of this greater picture. So if God were to experience, I don't even like the word God, let's say the divine essence of the universe, the pure essence of love, were to be able to experience itself in all of its fullness, then it would have to have contrast, knowing that in the end that there is no suffering, truthfully. There's just, and also from my perspective, I've been shown that many people who, although there is pain, and I said this in one podcast, and somebody was really upset about it because I said, when there's a certain amount of pain, you will come out of your body. And somebody was really in the comments was really upset about it because they said, oh no, pain is real. And I'm like, yes, there is real pain, and yes, we will suffer, and it could be excruciating. But when it no longer serves the soul, like if that pain does not serve your soul, this is not an unkind universe. You're not going to just be suffering for no reason. You may choose that suffering on a soul level because you wanted to know what that experience is like. And again, when the movie's over, nothing has happened. No one can hurt you. And there is no judgment. That was another thing that I was shown in this out of body experience, is that there's only compassion for us and kindness. And yes, we get to relive those less wonderful moments of our life, those shameful moments of our life, and the beautiful moments of our life. But there's no judgment by some superimposed upon us. We might feel shame and we might judge ourselves and we might want to come back and do better and try again, but we're not even forced to come back. So this whole ideal of, in some spaces, there's this ideal you're going to come back as a cockroach or you're going to come back and be tortured. That is not love. That is not love. You may come back and be the victim, where in one life you were the predator, but it's because you want that. You want to have that experience. You're like, oh my gosh, I need to understand this more clearly. Can I please come back and be the victim? That is the universe, not you did wrong. First of all, what kind of God would do that? Let me give you a limited consciousness. Let me give you some predispositions. Let me put you in the most horrid possible space where you might actually fail, and then I'm going to punish you for that. That's ridiculous. It does not exist like that. And also, if you think about it from a broader spectrum, if you think about infinity, if you could even possibly imagine infinity, let's just see, okay, 1,000 years, 100,000 years, 200,000 years, a million years, a billion years, a trillion years, a trillion years. And then you have this little speck, like this 89 years, this 100 years. And by the way, that's going to affect the rest of eternity. You're going to be punished for all of eternity for that one little speck. The math is off. I'm not a mathematician, but the math is off. This big thing should be more important than this little speck. And so, I mean, it never made sense to me, this idea of hell and heaven and
Wrath or wrath of God, that doesn't make sense
no,
to me either.
no. Wrath of God, first of all, he gives you this limitations. If you wanted me to be so perfect, why didn't you make me perfect? And then I would never fail. But that's not what God wanted. He wanted us to have, he loves, I mean, like there is so much love in the universe for our soul that we get to, our joy is that we could even hate our creator and be loved absolutely the same as if we loved our creator. That's freedom. That's like a child. If I was to have a child and I say, you have to love me. And if you don't love me, then I'm going to hate you and I'm going to punish you. No, that's not love. I can say, I remember my children were teenagers and I was being told that they hate me because I was the disciplinarian and I was finding out they were sneaking out the window or whatever. They were being punished. And they would tell me, I hate you, or whatever it is that they would say to me that was hurtful. And I remember saying, I don't care if you hate me, I will always love you. And because I love you, I will show up in this way. I will show up and I will try to protect you to the best of my ability, but I can't protect you from yourself. So go ahead and hate me. That's okay. I will always love you. And that just was, they were like, what? Mom is so weird, So continuing on, I'm in this out of body experience. I'm in this space of absolute bliss. I'm speaking to, I'm not even speaking, like I'm having this, not even telepathic, because telepathic is not truly what's happening. It's like a knowing, it's like an instant knowing that there's these multiple timelines. I was shown that there was a lot of different destinies I personally could have taken. I could have exited the planet, number one. I could have died. And I was shown what would happen. I was shown my own funeral. I was shown my kids at my funeral. I showed my kids growing up, having children, going to college, being fine without me. And I was like, what? I thought I was like pinnacle to their success or failure. And again, each soul is here for the bliss of its own existence. If I were to take that path, they would be fine. And their soul would have already signed up for that. And then I was shown that I could come back with some disabilities. I could have come back and been a paraplegic or many options, like too many to even mention. But the one that I chose and the one that brought me the most joy, and that's the one that we all choose, either consciously or not, because I think some people don't want to remember that they consciously chose it. And I remember this. There was a lot of weird stuff that started happening once I woke up because I started seeing auras, which I didn't even have that word. I just started seeing lights around people. I could feel their thoughts and know their feelings. And I saw that somebody was going to steal my purse. I was very concerned about my purse because I had my tickets in my wallet and like I had a big bag of spiritual books that I had just bought at this really cool store. And I wanted my books and I wanted my purse, but I saw some man in like rubber boots, I imagined to be a fireman, stealing my purse. And I was like screaming out to everyone at the car wreck, like, can you please go down and get my purse? And nobody could find my purse, of course. And then when I got to the hospital, the first thing I encountered when I came into the hospital was this male nurse who grabbed my arm. And he was like, were you guys drinking? And that's like a felony or whatever. And like, your cousin's going to die. And I was like, what? I don't drink. And no, we weren't drinking. And my friend had a couple drinks, but he certainly wasn't drunk. Like he had maybe a glass of wine, but I was like, no, we don't drink. And we weren't doing drugs. And then we had someone come in with less injuries than your cousin and they passed away and your cousin's going to die. It was like really harsh. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I just pushed him off of me and I pushed my way into where they have my cousin in like the emergency room. And this is where it gets kind of weird because It's amazing story. And then we had someone come in with less injuries than your cousin, and they passed away, and your cousin's going to die. It was like really harsh. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I just pushed him off of me, and I pushed my way into where they had my cousin in the emergency room. And this is where it gets kind of weird because it's kind of amazing story.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.